uh, on behalf of the Ministry of Education and Science, I would like first to say that we are starting later, and today's title of the session is devoted to the agile. So yes, agile education and science. Let me introduce our main speakers, and upon the end of the presentations of speakers, probably we'll have time for short discussion. Our speakers, Almagul Muhamedkhanova, Vice President of the National Academy of Education, named after Altan Sarin; Yermek Kuzinbaev, Acting Chairman of the Board of Kasipkor Holding; Pavel Chernych, a UN expert on behalf of Russia. He's also expert on employment. Aida Sigentava, Dean of the Nazarbayev University Graduate School of Education. Murat Sartbayev, who is the director of the project of stimulating the innovations. Thank you very much. I'm sure that this applause to all our speakers. Yesterday, we were witnesses of the plenary meeting of the 12th Astana Economic Forum. We were listening inspiring speech of the first president, Mr. Nazarbayev, a number of other global speakers. And I would like to say that today, very important activities and events are taking place within this forum, and speakers of the global level attending this forum, and all speakers underline importance of education for global development. And of course, this is inspiring us, but also at the same time, we probably feel higher responsibility. Future depends much on us, people working in area of science and education, and I think that all representatives of scientific and higher educational establishments and our parliament members who are very closely looking at the issues being covered by the Ministry of Science and Education, and they sympathize with us and support us in every way, and jointly will ensure very serious breakthrough, and this breakthrough will be accomplished probably in very near time. And those achievements which are already gained are sufficient to become a platform for very rapid changes. That's why I urge all of you, due to high importance of these objectives, be involved, closely involved. As success of the system would be very important, but our efforts will be even greater. So now I would like to invite the first speaker, Ms. Almagul Kinesbaeva, Business in Schools of Kazakhstan, Paradigms and Perspectives, Competence of Future, which future skills our graduates of secondary schools, colleges, and universities shall possess. First of all, we understand that education shall strategically build a way to see a picture, educational picture for many years ahead. Important, famous scholars who are quoted by politicians, economists, these prove the fact that we need to be ahead of time, slightly ahead of time. We need to understand which phenomenon, which events are taking place in the 21st century. Today we are first to show which novelties, which innovations have been already included to education system. Changes started earlier, it is well known, and experts from all over the world try to understand how we are updating our educational system, because starting from 2016, we changed the approach, we changed the system, and we did that not on a fragment basis, but on the whole basis. And one more thing, we have a successful experience. Nazarbayev Intellectual University and schools who have shown that renewal is possible, renewal gives results, and plus this is the need. And references to the World Economic Forum, which and reference to referring to 16 necessary skills, without which no modern education is possible, were taken into account, and we need to move forward, and human capital will be the major resource. I need also to show that in Nazarbayev intellectual schools, what has been developed in Nazarbayev intellectual schools have been now included to all guidelines, and there are some other factors which shall not be neglected by none of the systems. Skills, yes, there could be excellent students, excellent pupils, but at the same time, could lack practical skills. If students and pupils can't practically apply acquired knowledge, then this will be useless. Looking at my own CV, I shall admit that probably I was lacking and am lacking some skills. There were no system how to apply the knowledge. So how to apply the knowledge, this is the work of number one. So academic knowledge are owned by our pupils, but functional literacy does not show great results. We are speaking about functional literacy. in 2011, and this program was welcomed by schools, universities, but unfortunately it was just a declaration. But today we can't say that we are dramatically late, but we started implementing this program. I won't enumerate all authors. Today and tomorrow, customs officers, accountants, tax people. So these are in the list. So but when I look at the new list, I was scared. So some professions will be missing, but there will be reorientation, and retraining. So now I would like to be more specific about business education. All normative documents were prepared before 2016, and our country is saying that we shall health, family values, other crucial topics shall be incorporated to the programs. But the programs cannot be artificially expanded. And we have made some exceptions for some disciplines. The fundamentals of business and entrepreneurship. And in 17 regions of the country, they tested the curriculum. Although many questions were raised, the program was initiated in 2014 by our national chamber of entrepreneurship at American, and this is now in the curriculum of the 10th and 11th forms, but the format is now very different. Not just registering that the knowledge has been acquired, but actions, how knowledge is practically applied. So act, analyze, be involved, research, evaluate. This is all good. We set tasks before student and professor. There are many specific situations, and there shall be also social communication. There are indicators, and also this curriculum even incorporate 3 language need aspect. What else is important? We stopped communication and ability to work efficiently. One of other important tasks. We know that we know many technologies like SWOT analysis and Ricardo map. So children are taught not only in a way that they shall know that businesses are existing, but to be able to understand which businesses are more required. Apart from testing, we thought long which teachers of what profile could teach this discipline. Historians, teachers of history, or other profile teachers. So, and the work is being continued with the universities. And this is right because there is a connection and continuity principles. Without higher educational establishments involvement, this will not be possible. I will not speak about the content, but case-based approach was used, and much has been taken from international experience. This program, this curriculum has been tested, and there were teachers, there were historians, humanities, and even math teachers. So, yeah, that's why I would like just to say this discipline has been included, the fundamentals of business and entrepreneurship. No one everyone proves that this is a very necessary discipline. The next floor is given to Kasipkor. So, transformation of the world around us. Dear forum participants, today we already see that what has been prepared some time ago, they are not on demand. There are new labor market demands. Now there are very many changes due technological processes. Earlier, even if we were, for example, training storage employees, now Amazon, for example, have replaced storage employees by robots, and but we still have managers on approval of loans. But now there are intellectual machines which work on this. In an hour time, this system processes that volume of information which probably could be covered only by 60,000 man-hours. So in future, we won't need managers approving loans. So that's why all these make us to think how to work. So within the professional and vocational education, what we need to look at first, the content of the educational process and methodology. Today, we have new format of the renewal of the content and development of new programs and curriculum. So renewal of the content and development of new curricula. The main focus will be on technological and social trends. Why? Because in the 21st century, this is the main picture of the specialist. We have the main criteria: practice orientation, mobility, flexibility. Why I'm saying all this? Because when a graduate or specialist or student will be taught not only knowledge, but will be taught how to apply this in practice, all these need to be based on the competence And this, of course,
It depends on the methodology that is used at the moment. We should aim when the student graduates from the university, he or she should not only possess the hard skills but also so-called soft skills that a person will study throughout his or her lifetime as part of the informal or additional training, and only then we can be competitive. And the main focus should be on the global trends. Uh, Today, for the specialist training, there is a world skills movement that provides the promotion of the specialist and the exchange of best practices and how this can be used in our country. And this is like a community or maybe island where the new ideas, new methods that have already been tested are used. We all understand that without relevant staff members and teachers, we cannot do this. In this regard, the halting has developed a new format on professional training in 2016, and during 3 years, more than 10,000 teachers have attended the professional development. And the main task that we set for the teacher is not only give the knowledge, but also let them to develop further. And the last thing that I would like to say, the most recent World Bank study showed that about 57 professions will be lost, will disappear due to robotization or automation, and this applies to managers, some administrative jobs, and some technical jobs, which all be replaced by robots. What shall we do in this sense? Due to disappearance of the old jobs and professions, they will be replaced with the newly emerging professions and jobs that we don't know yet. And the engineer or the civil engineer should be able to work in virtual reality, should be able to engage in creative work and leave the mechanical manual work to computer. So we should build our system so that our graduates are capable of continuously improve themselves. And I can say that following the task set by the first president, Mr. Nazarbayev, we started the Just Maman project. And as part of this project, we will update over 200 institutions, universities, and colleges that train 100 in-demand professions. And today, the 40% of these professions are the new professions, the new jobs. And we are currently working with the foreign partners. What equipment needs to be purchased? What approaches need to be adopted? So we need to be ready already. And And I want to say at the end that it's no longer a time to keep your head in the sand. You no longer can say that this is not my business. We all are affected by these developments, by these changes, and we need to consolidate all stakeholders and all levels of education and the labor market and the educational organizations. And when we make the joint discussion and constructively make a decision, and we don't catch up, we go hand in hand with the demands. Thank you very much. Yemek Berhitovich, thank you very much. The change management is actually a very important area where not only Kasep Core Holding operates, but all of us. I would like to give the next floor to Pavel Chernych. As you can see, today we have mostly local speakers, but we will be happy to listen to your speech. I'm very pleased to meet all of you, and we work with you closely. And I want to tell you one thing that is happening in Kazakhstan. Virtually all addresses of the first president of Kazakhstan, Nursultan Nazarbayev, there is an idea of building the society, and he says that the fourth industrial revolution has started, and he talks a lot about the new skills. And in this case, in Kazakhstan, there is a major project, the national qualification systems. And I am here as a World Bank expert, so please do not confuse this with Russia. These are the global trends. The thing is that the education system is not the main, it's the key element. If the education system doesn't take part in national qualification system, the rest doesn't make any sense. Why? I will tell you why. In 2011, 2012, the globalization era is declared at the Davos Forum, that it comes to each country, and we all should react to this. And one of such instruments is the national qualification system, which allows to embed Kazakhstan to the global labor market. So what you talk about, the specialist training that corresponds to the global needs, it should be formed in Kazakhstan, but it should be interesting to the rest of the world. You should not simply copy it from Germany, Finland, or Singapore. You cannot simply copy-paste it. It's not going to work. So this system needs to be developed domestically, and you need to use your own experience and best practices and the existing education system. So at the moment in Kazakhstan, the national qualification system is almost fully formed. As of today, 155 countries form their national qualification system, and they specialize on the TVET area, and there are experts that work in this area. So I will refer to these sources. We have such people like a Turina process. We have the notion of Bologna process. We have the UNESCO classifier. But all of them today, starting from 2011, 2012, they operate on the international labor classifier. And the ILO has organized a wonderful session yesterday dedicated to this topic. But initially, national qualification systems were created to recognize the education outcomes when the technical progress was slow and emergence of technological product would take 10 decades to realize. The stable education system would allow these 4 or 5 year gaps, but today some products are some things are produced today, but after just 2 years they are no longer independent. So just imagine you spend 4 years training this specialist, so you need to have maybe a crystal ball or be sort of like a Nostradamus. And when graduates finish education, they are given the diploma, and it's for the rest of their lives. Today we have a completely different story. We have the industrial economy. It still hasn't gone away. It's still growing. It's still expanding. But now we have the economy of knowledge. And like it was said, the knowledge is something that you can use in practice. If you read a book and if you have only theoretical knowledge, it's the information, it's not knowledge. So now it's the critical moment when the education system should be more attentive to the words and terms. And now the education is inseparable from the practice. And there is a direct link with the labor market, because the speed of change in the labor market is even higher and faster than in the education sector. So there could be some jobs, some positions that could exist 3 years. The speed of releasing the products is only 2 or 3 months. So it's so-called hard skills. And here we have the system of quick education, rapid education. In your legislation, you have wonderful model education that help to form the flexible education. But at the same time, there is a need to train not just the young people, but also the adult people, because the education of adult people is also a challenge. But the education, the result of the education, the outcome should be competences. In EU or US, the competence is considered as the result of the education. It's the knowledge that you can use in practice. And I hope and I want Kazakhstan to avoid these mistakes. Do not confuse this system with the national framework. Do not create parallel systems. Do not cut out yourself from the labors. So I am telling you, as an expert, you're at the critical juncture, and the path that you select will impact your future success. You must understand that the national qualification centers is the education results and outcomes. So I'm not going to name the key task. It's improving it's a continuous improvement of productivity. While you sleep, there is still a need to adopt the innovation. So it's a towards 24/7 system. It's a very interesting system. For Kazakhstan to be embedded in the global system, we need to accept the global labor separation. The industrial division should be accepted, and see how this overlaps with the national qualification system, and how it will impact the professions that you prepare. And there is a big demand on the chain related with your NKZ chain. You teach the professions, but your main classifier is the classifier of subject, and it's based on the ISCA 08, because there is a global chain and there is a link to European system, but in other countries it's taken as the main classifier, and the profession they're embedded in the global community, and there is a clear identification of what you teach. There is no need to invite foreign experts. Yes, you teach this. That's why the international organizations like ILO, UNESCO, and others, it's their job. This is what they do. Your task is to take this document and identify it within your country. And for this, there are the industrial frameworks, and this is important, and I can send it out later. This is what the professional industrial communities should develop. What employers are going to give you? The knowledge, and not just the theoretical knowledge, but the knowledge that can be applied in practice, practically, a soft skill and hard skill that we talk about. But this is given by the employer association. And so your methodology is really the most advanced in the world. You just simply need to apply it, and just start doing it every day, step by step, little by little, and just don't remember about this from event to event, but do it on a daily basis. And this is what Yermek talked about. In ORCA, there is a periodical duration, a frequency, but the subjects have already been identified. If you look at the Nkeze classifier, and in this ORCA, the employers say in ORCA there is a notion, the classifier of the economic activity. There is types of process, and the statistics committee clearly knows what money have been spent on specific product, and you know how much the specialist produces in terms of GDP. So we can clearly see what professions are valuable and how much funding and money should be spent on these professions. And this is how it's worked in the EU. These are the screenshots from the website. You are at the stage of whether to accept it or not, but EU has already passed this stage. Last year, I attended the Torino session. We were sitting and we were discussing the professions that exist, and we were not referring to some abstract figures. We had some real figures at hand, and we have some interesting figures. It's a skill. It's called Skills Panorama. You can find all these figures in open access. So the forecast for 2013 tells what professions will change or disappear. So it's interesting. The professions will change, not disappear. The accountant, office staff. No, they will not disappear. They will remain, and not only they will remain, but 2030, these amended professions, not the disparate professions, we will need about 2 million of those. For example, the lawyer. So, dear colleagues, it's the opinion of sectoral communities, industrial communities, and the staff members and lawyers, they will have a different status. They will work with digital certificates. It's not the AVM operator. It's completely different specialist. And now the attention. And this This panorama provides the idea on how many new jobs need to be created in EU. See, these so we'll additionally have 12 million jobs, which is the top. Sales workers, 9 million people. How shall we build our educational programs to meet this demand? Because the educational program should lead to employment. We will make this orca, and you won't need to guess what to teach. You already have this information, and and here I would like to finish my presentation. Thank you very much, Pavel. You probably know much better the history, especially the national qualification system was adopted for the first time in 2010, and in 2012 the president has given instructions to further develop this system. But the most important idea here, in 2012, we have developed a national framework, and it is comparable to European framework. It has 8 levels, and as a signatory of Bologna process, we have assumed obligations that our high school students will obtain the 4-level knowledge. And you're right when you say that even while we sleep, the innovations still continue, and we don't have the so-called institutional memory. And this framework have been in pilot mode, but we have developed some professional standards. But unfortunately, maybe the time dictates, and we do the new because the changes happen quite quickly. And following your presentation, we will launch different platforms. We will utilize the project approaches. And taking this opportunity, I want to say to all the colleagues sitting in this room, this is very interesting presentation, but this approach, we have it, and we probably have to pay more attention, more closer attention. And now we are doing the distribution of public order. We say that our department use this approach and in accordance with our classifier of professions, we see what's the number of grants that can be allocated to specific professions. So, dear rectors and pro-rectors, we need to utilize this approach. This is controlled forecasting. Some people say this will disappear or not disappear. We just need to use the forecasting, and artificial intelligence can define and see what is going to happen in the future, and it requires redesign of educational organizations, because how can you prepare the specialists of future if you are not the future specialist yourself? And I'd like to give the floor to Aida Sagentaeva and her Tepes.
Аида. I also do. После таких выступлений, позвольте мне...
Yes, after such speeches, let me just adjust some things. I would like to talk now not as a dean or not as an education specialist, but as a mom of children of generation who raise not very comfortable questions, and probably, of course, I will try to find some questions, but at the moment I don't have the answers. As a mom, I'm of course concerned about the world, status of the world. in which our children to live, volatility, a lack of well, confidence, uncertainty, when people we do not understand whether this or those events will be significant for your kids, and uh, and this question of instability when the time is changing. Pavel said uh, that now things are taking place, taking 2 months. When some things take 2 months, when they took it took 4 years before professional planning, um, and they shall be of the same level of complication for positive decision. And when we start thinking about the future, we look at the we start looking at some things. Some futurologists, Brief History of Tomorrow's Harari, author is Harari, that the governments will start create special ghetto for people who are not used to technologies, special jobs and special rayons will be uh, created to let them live in three-dimension spaces, um, separated from other people, who would live in who are more adaptive. That's why I don't want my kids to find themselves in such a ghetto. And today, um, to be adapted to technological process, yes, many things are outdated now, and now we teach children to compete not with each other but with artificial intelligence. And that's why we need to teach them those competences and skills which robots, due to their physical and technical characteristics, are unable: emotional, intellectual, telepathy. Only human beings can sympathize. Also, such notion as uh, human factor, but to be able to sympathize, ability to sympathize, and critical thinking, to be able to be on the alert to evaluate the situation. Now we are deviating from strategic planning and speaking about the project management and project thinking. So yes, kids need to understand that they will work and live in digitalized world regardless of their wish. And of course, Toyota, by the way, is refusing from robots because robots can't invent models which can be invented by human beings, for example, impressed by some under impression of some beautiful pictures or beautiful music. Only human beings can do something which will be pleasing another human being, which will be not possible for robots. There are many innovations, there are many new ideas. You said that much has been done, but we can't pack nicely, and entrepreneurship skills are understood in this way by me. Yes, of course, we don't look only at classificator of professions, but we now need to look at a classificator of skills. We need to think that our kids need to live in comfortable conditions and survive in new conditions. I'm often asked uh, which professions, whom I would like to see my kids. So earlier I wanted them to be financial analysts, but biotechnology probably is the area where I need now to orient my kids. World Economic Forum is saying that that education will be so. If you don't want to live in ghetto, we need to learn to learn. There is an English phrase from cradle to. We need to learn during entire life. But when I asked my daughter, she's 11 years old, when she will graduate from school, there won't be 65 professions will be missing, and she answered that she wants to work where she will be happy. And then I asked, and what about us, me and dad, our when we'll be when we'll retire, so you need to keep us. But she says that for you, parents, the most important thing is to let your kids to be happy. She said that you will be happy if I will be happy. Yes. The next floor is given to Mr. Sartbayev, Inclusive Innovations. Dear colleagues, dear forum participants, yesterday at the plenary meeting, we heard much about inclusiveness in economy, and this is the major objective of the state policy to upgrade, to improve living conditions and increase well-being of people. Inclusiveness is understood as an access of wide layers of population to services, works, and it promotes quality of life quality. In 2015, at the ministerial meeting of OECD countries, special accent was made to open innovations, open science, and global inclusiveness. Last year, at the World Economic Forum, it was suggested that a new way of calculation of quality of life in countries shall be based also on the inclusiveness principle. And not all countries which were in top segment were in the same top segment by inclusiveness index. For example, US is only 27th position as for inclusiveness index. What are the characteristics of inclusiveness, inclusive innovations? First of all, there shall be scientifically justified innovations. So all achievements shall be scientifically justified and proved. Also, not charity but business. Inclusive innovations shall be the basis of innovations, and gaining profit shall be the major principle. Social orientation. So the results shall be visible in the life of people. They shall be for wide layers of population to socially vulnerable population. These also achievements shall be disseminated widely, especially in rural areas. Who are consumers for inclusive innovation? The government. The government is the major client, and as for executing parties, business and population are the ones. And 17 objectives were set up to create sustainable development of the government, and 12 of them are to be solved through inclusive innovations. Inclusive innovations are very important in our life, and we also need to understand that science shall be developed in those areas, on those projects which are related to inclusiveness. For example, there could be drinking water purification in the remote areas to improve quality of drinking water, which is very crucial for health. So distant education, which would enable to to ensure individual education programs to smart pupils and to disabled students, pupils. This is also very crucial for remote areas. So health-related projects where the initial screening of patients could be offered. There were some projects which allowed to, on a distant basis and in larger scale, could make diagnostics of some heavy diseases. Also, various technologies in green energy, energy saving, so alternative energy sources. And within the loan between Republic of Kazakhstan and the World Bank, simulation of productivity of innovations is being conducted. The purpose is to unite efforts of science and society to ensure sustainability of innovative projects, creation of consortium of inclusive innovations, and business and science, not society, but science, to have commercial organizations. So the participants of the programs shall be accredited scientific institutions, and also all those organizations shall not be affiliated. And these grant programs has been developed by international experts, by Ms. Jessica Grant. She is UN expert, and Mackenzie, and she she was advisor to very famous companies like Total, for example. And stakeholders in Kazakhstan were interviewed, also government agencies, companies, and very thorough and detailed work has been done. Also, simulation of productive innovations envisages creation of International Council of Science and Commercialization. So selection and following up the projects to see the final results. Specialists in area of commercialization, Thomas Luich, Erika Solai. Thomas Siluchev, for example, was advisor of Mr. Bush Jr., Mr. Obama in State Department of State. As for Miss Erika, she is she represents the University of Texas, one of the most famous ones in this area. So also Mr. Majidi is advisor of the World Bank, Sergeyev USAID, and other organizations. Also, Christina Lagamaza, who is unfortunately, we are short, we have time limit. So transparency and selection of our programs. Our grant program fully meets the strategic requirements of our government. Thank you. Thank you. Dear session participants, these were our main speakers, and the questions and issues were covered in very interesting way. We have time from 1 and 2 questions from the audience. So, Elena Grishnova, is it planned? So much has been told about freedom of speech. So, is it planned to introduce any curricula to improve the speakers' skills, to enable students, pupils to talk freely? Thank you for your question. Yes, maybe I will say good news that most of curricula they devoted to speakers' skills, and entrepreneurship program has a special section, and yes, there is a whole section. Thank you. Yes, there is national center in Singapore. So not all skills can be covered within one curricula, and in higher education, yes, we also plan for graduates and mastership and doctorship courses would envisage not only speakers' skills development, but also some other, well, abilities. And we can't cover, of course, everything. For example, if we didn't know about the social networking, now we are facing this phenomenon, and of course, yes, this is Nazarbayev University curriculum. Yes, envisages colleagues. I would also recommend the following. Maybe speaker's skill is not so far skill, FINA-based learning, situational learning, when a child finds himself or herself in some situation, to find a way to come out of this situation, and then it will work. There are many options, and I would like to say that communication management is more comprehensive program, because this is a soft skill, and communications are the ability and skill. So team ability to work in team. This is lacking not only with kids but with some adults. For lawyers, teachers, doctors, communication skills are integral part of soft skills. Там кто-то что-то говорит? Микрофон.
О подготовке кадров. Ну, когда говорили о роботах.
Talked about robots, about specialists. First, we are to think about starting point, from where the beginning angle. Of course, it's to be honest, we are too far from replacing human beings by robots. So school children have lost the real perception of time. And if we'll talk just that you need to be prepared for tomorrow, they need to understand the moment of the current moment of time. So I have such feeling from today's presentation that children will be disoriented in the way that they will be not able to evaluate the current situation.
Здесь многие CEO, да, Chief Executive.
More than the GDP of a nation. And the CEOs of these giant companies, they sometimes go to uninhabited islands so that to isolate themselves from the society. And I would like to propose to our managing director to isolate themselves from realities. And what we do most of the time, we catch up with what was yesterday. And today, we had a unique opportunity to fantasize, to visualize about the future. Speaking of the reality, we are not going to get anywhere from the reality, but reality is always with us, and we see our problems through the reality. Today, we say that there are problems related with mediation. This needs to be included now. The level of aggression and the issue of loneliness. There are so many problems, and to say that we are far away from this is not true. These problems are here with us. I will agree with you in the first part of your statement when you say that the professionals decide everything. The professionals are the key. We don't dream about something which is unrealistic. we dream about having and preparing highly professional specialists. And sometimes we know how soon we are going to address these issues. There are many problems in schools related with what's happening today in the world and in the country. May I give a few comments on this? When I was a child, the virtual reality was still something fantastic, and I didn't believe it. This was something I saw in the movies, but now I believe it. So when I was a child, it was a fantastic, but now it's a reality, and we need to be ready. We cannot say that let's take the dweller. Let's take a profession of welder. It's a highly paid profession, but now this profession becomes automated. Now the welding is done by robots. Robots do the weldings at a high level, and the man is simply controls or manage the process, so we cannot get away from this. Let me say a few words. A good consultant can always explain why it happened, but nobody can tell you how it's going to be in future. So McKinsey Young, they tell you very well why it happened, but they don't tell you what will happen in the future. So when the child comes home, the adults, the parents cannot explain to children on what's going to happen tomorrow, how to behave. And there is a wonderful movie called Star Wars, and there's elite, and then the population that lives in the caves, and there is such image of the future. Let me briefly tell you the image of future. For image of future, the education system is responsible. And if the nation can agree within itself, then the education system must serve as a conductor. I propose to finish here because we exceeded our time limits. But colleagues, you have an opportunity to have a discussion and conversation in this forum, because this is a perennial topic, this is a perennial problem. We will never stop talking and thinking about this. We will never be able to get away from the future. So I call everyone to become the organization of future and actively involve in the changes that happen. Thanks everyone. Good luck everyone.